But why will we do all this? Let's turn to Proverbs 31. Let's just keep here because I only have a few more minutes left, and I want to cover the whys, not just the whats. Proverbs 31. And in Proverbs 31, you know this, and I agree with those who say that Solomon wrote this about his picture of his mother, Bathsheba, who truly, according to the Encyclopedia Judaica, hearken back to the great virtues of Ruth. Remember Ruth, the book of Ruth? Every one of the facets of Proverbs 31 you can find in the book of Ruth about Ruth. And so it might be that Solomon was looking at Bathsheba, his mother, and seeing beyond her at the great-great-grandmother of his by the name of Ruth. But what do we need to see in our wife if we want her to succeed spiritually? What is it she's looking for? Well, Proverbs 31 sketches out at least 4 different things. The first one is in verse 10, and it's significance. And look what this woman in Proverbs 31, who can find a virtuous wife, for her worth is far above rubies. What does a woman need to know? How significant she is. The significance, her value is, her price, her value is far above rubies. And for her to succeed, she has to have a reminder of that significance. I mean, Proverbs 31 should be a guide for how we treat and how we extol our wives. Here's the second one. Look at verse 11. Companionship is the second need for a wife to succeed, and a husband knows that. Verse 11 says, "The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he has no need of spoil." It's this companion he safely trusts in. He entrusts his thoughts, he entrusts his feelings, he entrusts his fears. You know, nowadays, American marriages are almost like, individual limited partnership deals where there's a distinct, 2 separate finances, 2 separate careers, 2 separate agendas. And God's math is 1 + 1, a husband and a wife, make 1. But in America, 2 people get married and 1 + 1 makes 2. And there's 2 separate lives. And that's what companionship in the Proverbs 31 sense. The husband's safely trusting in her. She is the one that he confides in and looks to and shares with. Here's another one in verse 12. There's security that she needs to see. She will do him good and not evil all the days. Nowadays, everything's disposable, even marriages, right? The disposable marriage. I told you about last month. I was up 41st and Yale somewhere, and I was waiting in line, and I heard the clerk talking. They just talk right out. And she was talking to the person in front of me, and she said to the person in front of me, "Well, you got to know when to be married and when to not be married. And I know, and I got out of it before I got hurt. And I've gotten out of it before, too. You got to know when to get out of it." And I thought, it's like disposable razors. When it gets dull, throw it out. And get a new one, the new model. And the security, she will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. And we need to consider that every wife needs, in her success, she needs to know that she is significant, that she is secure, that she is the companion. But look at verse 28. I love this. And this is so vital. "Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also. And he" what? Who has that verse? What does he do? Praises her. That's emotional responsiveness. And if a wife could count on the emotional responsiveness of her husband, she would just be very happy. Because that's what God wants it to be. Well, without having this kind of a shared life, without following Christ's word, marriages end up with what one author calls the common headaches of a Christian marriage. What happens if you aren't sharing your life, if you're not admiring your wife, if your wife is not supporting you, and if you don't have this shared life through all the seasons of life? What does marriage turn into? Here are maybe some of the types of marriages that we should guard against. An unbiblical husband sometimes will become an irresponsible head of the family. What is that? This is the husband that is nothing inside but a little boy, and he marries his wife thinking he's getting a mommy, and he seems to find one in his wife, and he's thoroughly self-centered, but he manages to appear as a loving and devoted husband, but he's totally irresponsible. That's kind of, he's running his family into debt. He has all of his toys. He thinks only of pleasing himself. You know, that's the total irresponsible headship. He kind of runs the family like it's a company that he's milking of all the value before he gets rid of it, kind of like corporate raiders do. It's a corporate raider husband. He's irresponsible. He's immature and he's self-centered. And that is a product of not having a godly marriage. Secondly, an unbiblical husband sometimes will become emotionally detached in his headship. This might mean he might be stable and even-tempered in the community, and he might be on boards of organizations and have an organized mind and a methodical way of making decisions, but he is detached and emotionally unavailable as a father and husband can get. Boy, we have a lot of problem with that in our world today. We have so many emotionally detached husbands. They think they just ride off in their chariot and they go to work and they come back and pay the bills, and they're not a part of the fabric of the family. Here's another one. An unbiblical husband, sometimes they're the workaholics. This man never leaves his work mentally or emotionally. He lives under pressure and sprays his family with his frustrations. The workaholic head. And then there's the spiritually apathetic head. This husband is a believer and a church attender, but beyond that, he's unresponsive to any spiritual thing. He never exercises spiritual leadership in his home. And that void blocks the intimacy his wife so longs for.